There are places on this earth that human beings were never supposed to survive. Places so brutal, so unforgiving, so magnificently hostile that even nature itself seems to have given up on making them livable. Oymyakon, a small village tucked deep into the heart of Siberia in the Sakha Republic of Russia, is one of those places. It holds the record for the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on Earth, with temperatures that have plunged as low as -71.2 degrees Celsius. That is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. That is simply Tuesday in Oymyakon. And yet, in this frozen corner of the world, where the ground has been frozen solid for thousands of years, where diesel freezes in engines and eyelashes turn to ice within seconds of stepping outside, an elderly Yakut couple has made their home. Not out of desperation, not because they have nowhere else to go, but because this is where they belong. This is their land, their ancestors' land, and no amount of cold can change that. Their names are Nikolai and Anastasia, both in their late 70s. Both born in Sakha, raised in Sakha, and determined to die in Sakha, on their own terms, surrounded by the silence of the taiga forest and the pale shimmer of the aurora borealis dancing above their log cabin roof. The cabin at the edge of nowhere. The cabin itself is a marvel of old-world engineering. Built from thick Siberian larch logs, the walls are nearly a foot wide. Every gap has been packed with moss and animal fur to keep even the faintest whisper of cold air from sneaking inside. The windows are triple glazed and still, on the coldest mornings, a thin layer of frost blooms across the inner glass like white flowers reaching for the sun. Inside, a large wood-burning stove sits at the heart of the home like a living, breathing thing. It never goes out, not in winter. Letting the fire die in Oymyakon is not a matter of comfort, it is a matter of survival. The pipes would freeze within hours. The walls themselves would begin to surrender to the cold. So Nikolai wakes every 2 to 3 hours through the night, every single night from October to April, to feed the stove another log. He has done this for over 50 years. It is as natural to him as breathing. Anastasia handles the rest. She wakes before dawn, and despite the darkness that swallows everything at this time of year, the sun rises here for only 3 hours in the depths of December. She moves through the cabin with the quiet confidence of a woman who has memorized every corner, every creak, every shadow of her home. She boils water from ice blocks that Nikolai chops each morning from the frozen river nearby. She prepares their meals, which almost always include reindeer meat, frozen fish thawed slowly on the stovetop, and black bread that must be kept near the fire or it turns to stone overnight. Outside, the temperature might read -55 or -60. On the worst days, -71. But inside this cabin, warmed by fire and decades of shared life, it is another world entirely. The Yakut way of living. Nikolai and Anastasia are Yakuts, or Sakha people, the indigenous inhabitants of this vast northeastern region of Russia. The Yakuts are one of the most remarkable peoples on Earth, having adapted over centuries to conditions that would destroy most civilizations. Their language, their culture, their food, their clothing, everything has been shaped and refined by the extreme cold around them. Nikolai still wears traditional Yakut winter clothing on the days he ventures outside, a long fur coat made from reindeer hide, boots called torbozy crafted from the fur of reindeer legs, and thick mittens that extend halfway up his forearms. He moves slowly but deliberately when outside, knowing that rushing causes sweating, and sweat in this cold can kill a person. The moisture freezes against the skin, and hypothermia sets in faster than most people could imagine. He has a small herd of horses, Yakut horses, a stocky, thick-coated breed that is the only horse in the world capable of surviving outdoors in temperatures below -60. These horses dig through the snow with their hooves to find frozen grass underneath, and they cluster together at night for warmth. Nikolai checks on them every morning, his breath forming thick clouds in the frozen air, the snow beneath his boots so dry and cold it sounds like breaking glass with every step. Anastasia, meanwhile, is the keeper of knowledge in their home. She knows which roots and dried herbs help with cold-related illness. She knows how to read the sky, how a certain shade of pink on the horizon means a storm is 2 days away, how the behavior of the horses predicts temperature drops. She learned these things from her mother, who learned them from her mother before her. It is a living library passed down through generations, and it is every bit as valuable as any modern weather forecast. The silence and the beauty. People who visit Oymyakon, and very few do, often speak of two things that strike them immediately. The first is the silence. At -71 degrees, even sound behaves differently. The air is so dense and cold that it swallows noise. There is no wind on the coldest days. Wind and extreme cold of this magnitude rarely occur together, and so the world becomes absolutely, profoundly still. It is the kind of silence that city dwellers have never experienced and never will. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of a deep, ancient quiet that feels almost sacred. The second thing visitors mention is the beauty. The sky above Oymyakon in winter is a theater of natural wonder. The aurora borealis, the northern lights, sweeps across the darkness in curtains of green, violet, and white. The stars, with no light pollution for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, are so numerous and so brilliant they seem almost fake. And on clear days, when the sun does rise briefly above the horizon, it paints the snow-covered taiga in shades of orange and gold so vivid they look like something out of a dream. Nikolai and Anastasia have lived inside this beauty for their entire lives. When asked if they ever feel lonely, Nikolai gives a quiet laugh and says that loneliness is a city problem. Out here, he says, you are never truly alone. There is the forest, there is the sky, there are the horses, there is the fire, and there is the person sitting across from you who has shared every meal, every storm, every silent winter night for more than 50 years. What the modern world cannot understand. The nearest town with a proper hospital is several hours away by road, a road that becomes impassable during the worst winter months. There is no reliable internet. The electricity comes and goes. The phone signal is weak and unreliable. By every modern standard, Nikolai and Anastasia live in conditions that would be considered poverty or hardship. And yet they do not see it that way. Not even slightly. They have everything they need. Warmth, food, each other, a connection to the land that no apartment in Moscow or flat in London could ever replace. They are not surviving despite their conditions. They are thriving within them, living lives of extraordinary purpose, routine, and quiet dignity. In a world obsessed with comfort, convenience, and constant stimulation, there is something deeply humbling about a couple in their late 70s, living at the coldest inhabited place on Earth, asking for nothing, needing very little, and finding in each other, and in the vast frozen silence around them, everything that matters. The last fire keepers. There are fewer and fewer people like Nikolai and Anastasia left in Oymyakon. The young have largely moved to warmer cities. The population of the village has shrunk over the decades. One day, perhaps not too far away, this elderly couple will be gone, and with them will go a piece of human knowledge, ancient, irreplaceable knowledge about how to live alongside nature at its most extreme, rather than fighting against it. Until that day, Nikolai will keep waking in the night to feed the fire. Anastasia will keep reading the sky. The horses will stamp and breathe in the dark. The aurora will roll overhead. And at -71 degrees, in a log cabin at the edge of the world, two people will continue to prove something quietly extraordinary, that the human spirit, when it is rooted deeply enough, can survive absolutely anything. Even the coldest place on Earth.